Revealed how I transformed being fired into an amazing opportunity with the founder's clause. Jake sat at his desk, the factory floor behind him buzzing with machines. Or it had been. Now, silence loomed heavy like a storm cloud. With the factory's sudden closure, the disappearance of the hum of steel felt like the ground ripping away beneath him. To him, those machines weren't just machines, they were the heartbeat of a community that once held tight through thick and thin. Now, everything felt broken and barren. When the phone call came, it shattered his world. "We're sorry, Jake," the voice had said. Due to corporate restructuring, the words twisted like a knife. And with his job went not just a paycheck, but his pride and purpose. Everything started to spiral. Jake's chest tightened as he thought of Tara, who worked part-time at the diner, her hands worn from serving coffee and pie while trying to keep food on the table. They had once been the backbone of their small town. Now they felt lost. The bills were starting to pile up. Shame crept in, turning Jake's insides cold. But one day, a familiar face appeared on their doorstep. Mr. Thompson, the elderly veteran from down the road, shuffled in with that gentle smile of his. His voice was calm, like the rustling of leaves. "You know, back during the war, neighbors lifted each other up. We mustn't forget that." Jake listened, his heart warmed for the first time since that dismal day. Recollections flooded in of once bustling barbecues, neighborhood block parties, and neighbors helping each other move. A flicker of something ignited in him, a resolve. Days turned into nights, and while working through his feelings of loss, Jake stumbled upon something called the founder's clause. It was a glimmer of hope, a framework that would allow him to build a business from the ground up, using the very skills that made him such a valuable factory manager. This was his chance. Gathering the community felt both exhilarating and daunting. He laid out his vision, speaking passionately, but murmurings followed him like shadows. Was it idealistic? Was it foolish? What if you fail? He heard whispered behind him. Fear gripped him, the very same fear that gnawed at his neighbors and friends. The whispers didn't stop, and a familiar face, Tom, once utterly supportive, voiced doubts that cut through Jake's resolve like a razor. He felt crushed under the weight of misunderstanding. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. With so much at stake, Jake stood before a small crowd, the air charged around him like static electricity. Conflicted expressions filled the room. Could he really pull this off? Was he even cut out for the American dream anymore? The night lingered heavy with tension. As people filed out, Jake's heart raced and uncertainty seeped back in, a 1-2 punch to the gut. Could losing everything perhaps lead to an opportunity he had never imagined? With every eye cast downwards, every hushed tone echoing doubt, Jake knew the road ahead would be anything but straightforward. Jake inhaled deeply, trying to steady his racing heart. The dim light in the community hall felt suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in around him. He could still sense the whispers of doubt hanging in the air, wrapping around him like a heavy fog. What if he couldn't bridge the gap between his dreams and reality? What if his friends were right? He forced himself to look towards the exits where his neighbors had left. Some faces were familiar, friends he had laughed with over beers. Others were distant acquaintances who barely spoke to him before. Tara would often remind him of the importance of community, how each interaction was a thread in the fabric of their lives. Tonight, those threads felt frayed, but even amidst the weight of despair, a tiny spark flickered inside Jake, a determination to try, to not give in to the shadows. He could hear Mr. Thompson's words echoing in his mind, reminding him of the resilience that lay not just in individual strength, but in the collective spirit of a community. They needed each other now more than ever. The next morning dawned bright and clear. As he stepped outside, the crisp air bit at his skin, invigorating him. He pulled out a notebook, the pages filled with ideas and plans. What if he hosted a town hall meeting? He could share the founder's clause and invite everyone to participate in building something strong together. Their community had seen hard times, but it had always rebounded. Jake made a few calls, his voice steady, vibrant with hope as he shared his vision with anyone willing to listen. He heard excitement from some voices returning, laced with what felt like cautious optimism. Yet, he could still sense the hesitation in others. Each time he spoke, he felt as if he laid a part of himself bare before them. What if they rejected his idea? The day of the meeting arrived, and the community hall echoed with activity. The room was filled with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Jake stood at the front, his palms clammy, heart pounding like a drum. But as he looked out into the crowd, he saw familiar faces, neighbors, friends, those he had grown up with. He took a breath, the words pouring out. "This is not just about me," he began, his voice finding strength through the nerves. "This is about us. We've always been able to rise together. Let us turn our struggles into foundations for a better future." The crowd listened intently, the silence thick with anticipation. He shared his vision of a cooperative factory, a place where jobs could be created together, where they could all be owners, contributors, and supporters. It was wild, uncharted territory. But with a little luck and hard work, they could succeed. As he finished speaking, an electric energy filled the room. A few faces, previously doubtful, now regarded him with something new interest, maybe even hope. He could see hands reaching for one another, whispers exchanged. Perhaps this was the moment when their community would step forward, united. Just as he thought a shift was happening, a voice rang out from the back. "But what happens when we fail?" The question plunged the room into a silence so deep, even the air felt heavy. Jake's heart sank, doubt creeping back in. What if that voice was right? He locked eyes with Tara, who was standing near the front, her gaze steady and fortifying. In that moment, Jake realized it didn't matter if they stumbled or fell, as long as they tried together. He raised his chin high. "We learn. Together, we learn." But amidst the stirring hope, the anxiety of uncertainty loomed over him. Was he enough to rally an entire town behind a dream? As murmurs of conversation buzzed around him, Jake felt the warm pulse of possibility in the air. Yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest battles were still ahead. With the crowd slowly coming together, Jake knew he stood on the brink of something profound. But would he find the support he desperately needed to make this dream a reality? The energy in the room shifted, electric and unsure. Jake sensed that the question, a simple inquiry, held the weight of an entire community's fears. He scanned the faces, searching for reassurance, but mostly found uncertainty staring back at him. What had he got them into? Then he felt it. The unmistakable warmth of Tara's presence surged through the crowd. She stepped forward, breaking the silence that had enveloped them. "What if we flip the question?" she proposed gently. "What if we ask ourselves what happens when we succeed?" Her voice was like sunlight piercing through dark clouds, and with her words, Jake could see faint smiles starting to emerge. There was something so uplifting in the way she spoke, in how she drew them back into possibility. It took only moments before another voice piped in, this one recognized by all. "We make jobs." Sam, the local baker, grinned from near the entrance. "We feed our kids. We keep our community alive." Encouragement began to ripple through the room, and Jake felt it too. The doubt and fear that had ruled the moment started to tremble under the weight of hope. Tara's question had ignited something, a flame they could all rally around. Jake joined in, matching Sam's enthusiasm. "Yes! Imagine what we can build together. We need to keep that hope alive." The words flowed easier now, his passion shining bright. As voices began to overlap in excitement, Jake could feel surprise mingling with a growing sense of unity. They were no longer just a collection of individuals, but a group filled with shared dreams and ambitions. Ideas floated through the air like leaves in the wind, each one more audacious than the last. "I can help with the marketing," Lisa chimed in, a spark in her eyes. "I can provide the space for meetings," offered Greg, the local shop owner. Then came the real bombshell. Old Mr. Anderson, the gray-haired veteran of the town who had hardly spoken a word in years, stood up. I have some savings. I'm in, he declared, his voice steadier than Jake had ever heard. Their responses ignited a laughter, then a wave of cheering that rolled through the hall. Everyone was in, or at least willing to give it a shot. Jake stepped back, his heart racing. They had turned a wayward path into a trail lit by possibility. But doubts still whispered at the edges of his mind. Would this enthusiasm hold? Did they truly understand the challenges that lay ahead? As the meeting wore on, they dove deep into ideas, mapping out responsibilities, and hope filled what once were empty chairs. Yet, with each encouraging moment, Jake's mind drifted to the complexities they would face. What if they failed? What if divisions formed among them as they pursued their dreams? Still, his heart swelled as the evening came to a close. They picked a date for the next strategic meeting. Ideas flowed and laughter erupted with ease. Jake felt part of something bigger than himself, but the shadows of self-doubt loomed over him like a storm threatening to break. Later that night, as he lay in bed, sleep eluding him, he stared at the ceiling. The glow of the community hall still lingered in his mind. Longing for assurance, he reached for his notebook, flipping through the pages of their plans, the hopes they had articulated, the fears they had faced together. What had begun as an uncertain vision was evolving into a commitment. Yet, he wondered, would this collective drive stand firm when the winds of adversity picked up? In that quiet moment, a question struck him: what would happen if the realities of building their dreams started to pull them apart instead of weaving them closer together? And he knew he needed to prepare himself for whatever came next. The dawn was breaking, and Jake understood it was not just a new day, but the beginning of a journey filled with unknowns. He pulled the blanket tighter, realizing the road ahead was yet undefined, but it was theirs to walk. With trepidation and excitement swirling within him, he whispered to himself, "I won T, let fear win." And just as he thought he would finally rest, another question whispered into the quiet. What if he had to make a sacrifice that could change everything? The sun crept through the window, spilling golden light into Jake's room. Yet, even with the brightness, shadows of doubt still clung to his thoughts. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying Tara's words, Sam's exuberance, and Mr. Anderson's unexpected pledge. They had ignited something hopeful, but what if it fizzled out under pressure? With a deep breath, Jake climbed out of bed and decided to get a head start on the day. He slipped into some clothes and headed outside, the crisp morning air nipping at his cheeks. Every step felt heavier with the weight of his looming worries. He made his way to the community center, where he would meet Tara, who had agreed to brainstorm with him before their next meeting. The building stood tall against the backdrop of a waking town, its walls now marked with laughter and dreams. As he reached the door, he hesitated. What if there wasn't enough to build on the foundation they had started? Tara arrived moments later, her smile lighting up the morning. "Hey there, dreamer," she greeted, the warmth in her voice easing some of Jake's tension. "Ready to get to work?" "Yeah, let us do this," Jake replied, matching her energy as they stepped inside. The space was half empty, but already felt alive with possibilities, remnants of last night's excitement echoing around them. They spread their notes and ideas across a large table, and soon they were both lost in plans and strategies, feeding off each other's creativity. Midway through their brainstorming, Tara paused, her expression shifting from excitement to something deeper. "Jake, I need to talk about something important," she said, her voice steady yet soft. His heart raced, a flicker of anxiety sparking within him. "Sure, what's on your mind?" "I believe in what we're doing, and I feel committed to the group," she began, choosing her words carefully. "But I have to consider the possibility of failure. What if it doesn't work out?" Jake felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "Yeah, I think about that a lot. What if we're just chasing a dream that might not happen?" Tara nodded, her brow furrowing. "And what if, in that pursuit, we lose sight of what matters? I mean, I want to win, but I don't want to sacrifice my friendships or the values we stand for." Her words struck a chord in him. He remembered the enthusiasm of the room, the laughter, the joys. They were more than just plans, they were lives intertwined, a community that could rise or fall together. "You're right. We can't let the pressure tear us apart," he conceded. But we have to be ready for those challenges. We must communicate openly about our fears and changes. With a shared understanding, they refocused on their task, yet Jake couldn't shake the gravity of Tara's concerns. What if the process exposed cracks in their unity instead of strengthening their bonds? Later that day, the sun began to dip low in the sky as the shadows lengthened around them. They finally had a basic outline for their initiative, but Jake felt uneasy. The excitement was still there, but it felt fragile, like a bubble that could burst at any moment. As they wrapped up, he noticed the look in Tara's eyes. "Jake, you'll steer the ship, right? Promise me we won't lose our way," she urged, the sincerity in her voice piercing through his own uncertainties. "I promise," he said, though something stirred in him, an unease he couldn't quite name. He had to prepare not just for failure, but for sacrifices he hadn't even begun to understand. Once they said their goodbyes, Jake walked home in the gathering twilight, feeling the weight of populating dreams. Each step felt heavier with his thoughts, as questions danced in his mind. What if the sacrifices demanded of him were larger than he anticipated? As he closed the door behind him, he realized he was standing at a crossroads. The next meeting was just days away, and he had to confront something he had pushed to the back of his mind. What was he willing to give up for the sake of his community? Jake stood in the softly lit hallway of his home, the silence pressing against him like a thick blanket. He let the door click shut, wrapping himself in the evening stillness. For a moment, he simply stood there, searching for answers in the shadows. His heart raced as Tara's words echoed in his ears. What sacrifices would be necessary? He shuffled into the warm kitchen, the scent of leftover pasta filling the air. His mom was at the stove, humming lightly to herself. She looked over her shoulder and smiled. "Hey, champ. How was your day?" "Good, I think," he replied, sliding into a chair and resting his head in his hands. "Just good?" She pressed, stirring the pot with casual interest, but noticing the cloud over his expression. "You know you can tell me anything, right?" Jake wanted to spill the thoughts swirling in his mind. He wanted to share the weight he felt, but the words danced on his tongue, hesitant to take flight. "I'm working on a community project with Tara and some others." But you're worried?" she offered gently. "Yeah. What if I'm not enough? What if it all falls apart and I end up ruining things for everyone?" His mom paused her stirring and sat down across from him. "Honey, it's natural to feel that way. Every project means putting a part of yourself out there. But remember, you're not alone in this. You're part of a team." Jake nodded, grateful for her steady reassurance. "I know, but what if they depend on me too much? What if I let them down? Or what if you bring everyone closer together?" "Sometimes it's about taking that leap and hoping for the best, even when it feels scary," she replied, her warmth wrapping around him like a hug. He thought about that and feared how true it could be. He didn't want to be the one person who held the weight of their hopes. With a deep breath, he realized he had to face his demons. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the lives of those whose hopes were intertwined with his. "Okay, I need to figure this out," he said, adrenaline mixing with determination. "I'll talk to everyone at the next meeting. We'll set clear expectations. I can't be the only one carrying this." His mom smiled, pride shining in her eyes. "That sounds like a solid plan. Just be open and honest with them, and they'll understand." As if on cue, Jake's phone buzzed on the table. It was a message from Sam. "Hey, are we still on for tomorrow? Tara's in too, and I can't wait to get started." Jake's heart quickened. He typed back quickly, his fingers dancing over the screen. "Yeah, see you there. Let us make this work." He felt a surge of hope mixed with anxiety, but for the first time, it felt manageable. Tomorrow, he would face his team, and together they could either sink or swim. But this time, he wouldn't let his fears silence him. As he finished dinner, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing on the edge of something big. What if they brought something meaningful to their community? But there was still that uncertainty creeping in like the shadows in the evening. What if their plans unearthed conflicts he hadn't seen coming, secrets or struggles that could tear them apart instead of uniting them? Jake finished his meal and stood up, his face resolute. Tomorrow would be pivotal. He just hoped he wasn't setting himself up for a greater fall. What surprises lay in store, and would he be ready for the unexpected unraveling? Jake woke up the next morning to sunlight spilling through his window, warm and inviting. Yet, as he lay there, the weight of the day ahead pressed heavily on his chest. Today was going to be different. He tossed off the covers, his body buzzing with a nervous energy. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the opportunity to not just participate, but to lead, however terrifying that sounded. He dressed quickly, the theme of determination carrying him through. After a quick breakfast that barely registered in his mind, he grabbed his notebook. The blank pages felt like a canvas, waiting for paint but remained daunting in their emptiness. Every line anticipated a new idea, a fresh perspective. Would he be able to fill them with something meaningful? As he walked to the meeting, the crisp morning air wrapped around him like a comforting hand. Jake replayed the conversations in his head, imagining the support of Tara and Sam beside him. They needed to be on the same page. It had to be a collective effort. Together, they could accomplish something great, something that would impact their community. The meeting was set at the local community center, a building where laughter and activities often echoed off the walls. As he stepped inside, the vibrant energy of the other volunteers greeted him. Tara was already there, her eyes lighting up when she spotted him. "There you are. I was beginning to think you'd bail on us," she teased, but Jake could see the slight worry in her smile. "I wouldn't miss it," he replied, forcing a grin. Sam joined them, his enthusiasm infectious. "Okay, let us get started. We have a lot to brainstorm. Are you ready, Jake?" Jake nodded, heart pounding. "Yeah, let us do this." They gathered in a circle. Jake took a deep breath and cleared his throat, feeling the weight of 100 gazes on him. "Thanks for coming, everyone. I know we all want to make a difference, but I want to make sure we're all involved. I don't want anyone feeling like they can't contribute." The nods around the room reassured him. As the discussion unfolded, Jake felt the fear within him lessen. Everyone had ideas, stories of their own frustrations with the community and visions for improvement. They were united by a shared goal and a passion to create change, but then it happened. As ideas flowed, one of the older volunteers raised a concern. "But what about the disagreements we might face? We can't ignore that some people might not want the change we envision." A heaviness settled in the room as everyone absorbed this truth. Jake's heart raced again. Had he inadvertently opened a Pandora's box? A part of him wanted to push back, but he knew better. That honesty was necessary. "You're right," he said, gathering his thoughts. "Differences will come up for sure. But I think if we prepare ourselves for some pushback, we can address it thoughtfully." A discussion ensued, ebbing and flowing like a tide. Voices rose and fell, opinions clashing, but with an undercurrent of respect that surprised Jake. They didn't shy away from discomfort. Instead, they embraced it as an essential part of their journey. He knew then that this team could weather storms together, but just as the air seemed to clear, another volunteer spoke up, her voice softer but no less impactful. "I want to be involved, but I have personal reasons that make this hard for me. There are things I've lost, and I wonder if it's worth it." Emotion thickened the air around them, hearts exposed. Jake's stomach twisted. Whatever obstacles they faced, both internal and external, needed to be addressed. "I think we can work through this together," he offered, his voice steady but layered with empathy. "Everyone has a story, and we can honor those stories as we move forward. What if we create safe spaces within our project to support each other?" His words hung in the air like a lifeline thrown into choppy waters. The silence was heavy, filled with wonder. Would they embrace this journey together or let their fears divide them? As discussions continued, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something far more than they initially thought. The potential for growth, understanding, and deeper connections was palpable, yet the shadows loomed large. How far would they truly go to forge unity? Tomorrow would bring a new challenge as emotions and expectations collided. Would those unexpected stirrings lead them to breakthroughs or fractures? Jake couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. The next day dawned with a coolness that felt almost electric. Jake awoke earlier than usual, his heart still racing from the whirlwind of emotions left behind. Thoughts of yesterday's meeting played like a highlight reel in his mind. He felt a mix of excitement and unease, both emotions swirling together as he recalled the faces of the volunteers, the stories they shared, and the weight of the vulnerabilities laid bare. He rushed through breakfast, the coffee steaming but untouched, and grabbed his jacket. Today, he'd meet with Tara and Sam to decide on their project's next steps. It felt as if they stood on the edge of a cliff, ready to leap into the unknown but unsure of what would catch them. When he stepped into the community center, the energy surged. People milled about, some engaged in animated discussions, others deep in thought. Jake spotted Tara and Sam huddled over a table covered in colorful post-it notes. "Hey, there you are," Tara exclaimed, her voice brightening as he approached. "We're mapping out ideas and trying to figure out how to handle the pushback we talked about." Jake felt a warmth spread within him at her enthusiasm. "That is awesome. What have you come up with?" Sam gestured toward a sprawling display of notes. "We want to create a series of workshops where everyone can voice their concerns and ideas. It'll make us more approachable and encourage people to participate without fear. And we thought about inviting guest speakers, folks who've dealt with tough changes in their communities." Jake nodded, a smile creeping onto his face. "That sounds perfect. We can build bridges this way." As they continued to brainstorm, the atmosphere shifted. Volunteers joined in, eager to contribute. Ideas flowed like a river, some strong and bold, others gentle and refined. But just as momentum began to build, a familiar volunteer stepped forward, her expression serious. "I appreciate the openness, but I still feel like there's a gap. What if those who oppose us actively try to sabotage our efforts?" Jake's stomach dropped. Not the kind of concern he wanted to address today. Yet, he understood. He hadn't seen that side of the conversation take shape yesterday. Yet he had to respond. "What if their fears come from something that we can help them understand?" He suggested, feeling the burning energy of determination mix with anxiety. "If we approach opposition with compassion, ask questions instead of demanding loyalty, maybe we can turn skeptics into allies." Tara nodded, excitement sparking in her eyes. "Exactly. Frame it as a dialogue. We can do it. We have to do it." Encouraged by her enthusiasm, they ventured into a spirited discussion about how to cultivate relationships with those who might resist. Ideas sprang forth like daisies breaking through concrete, each brimming with hope and potential. But the clock ticked away, and with every minute, Jake felt pressure mount. Just when he thought they had solid ground, a soft voice broke through the chatter. It belonged to the woman who had initially expressed her hesitance, now gripping her chair tightly. "I appreciate what you all are trying to do. But what if I can't bear to relive the pain of my past?" Jake's heart wrenched. She was wrestling with her own demons, and he felt the weight of her struggle like a stone in his own stomach. "You don't have to do this alone," he said gently. "Your story matters, and we can create a space where you feel safe sharing. But it's also okay to take a step back if that's what you need. We're a team. We'll find ways to support you, no matter what." Her tear-filled eyes met his, and in that moment, Jake realized their mission wasn't just about projects or plans. It was fundamentally about connection and resilience. The air thickened with emotion. As the discussion continued, glimpses of shared laughter began intertwining with the weight in the room. The fear of reaching out began to slow fade, and its place was taken by budding trust. But even in this moment of formation, Jake couldn't help but feel uneasy. They were making strides, yet many challenges still loomed large. How would that vulnerability surface when real oppositions arose? As the day wore on, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. A quiet force lingering at the edges of their small group. He turned slightly, seeking the source, but saw nothing. Still, an ember of foreboding sparked within him. What if this new journey into their community was about to reveal even deeper truths, both in their work and in themselves? The challenge was set, but it left Jake with a lingering question. How would they hold together when the real storm started brewing? The air felt thick with anticipation, the calm before the thunder. The sun climbed higher as the day progressed, bathing the community center in a warm glow that felt inviting yet oddly charged. Jake continued to feel that invisible weight pressing against him. He glanced around, taking in the eager faces of the volunteers. Everyone was invested, pouring their hearts into this project. Yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that the atmosphere was more than just excitement. It was a storm brewing beneath the surface. Tara pulled him back into focus. Jake, what do you think about hosting the first workshop next week? We need to keep the momentum going. Absolutely, he replied, though he couldn't hide the hesitation in his voice. But maybe we should wait until we've had a chance to gather more input from everyone? True. Sam chimed in, but we don't have the luxury of time. Let us take the plunge. If we wait, people might lose interest. Jake nodded, knowing that impulsiveness could sometimes blur their vision. Okay, let us do it. But we should ensure we have a solid plan in place to address those concerns about pushback. As they finalized the details, Jake noticed the woman from earlier standing alone near the entrance. Her expression was pensive as she observed the bustling scene, her fingers twisting the fabric of her shirt. Something about her seemed fragile, like a flicker of light in the gloom. Hey, I'll be right back, Jake said to Tara and Sam, his heart pulling him toward her. He approached slowly, careful not to intrude. Hi there. I wanted to check in with you. How are you feeling? Her gaze snapped to meet his. Worried, she confessed quietly. I've shared my fears before, and I fear they'll just come rushing back if I open up in front of everyone. Sometimes the past can feel like a heavy weight, Jake said gently, but we're building something new together. A community doesn't just hold your pain, it can also lift you up. She bit her lip, her fingers now trembling. What if I can't get past it? What if I break down? He stepped closer. That's okay. Breaking down doesn't mean weakness. It shows you're human. And I promise you, if you feel that way, we're here. No judgment. Just support. Tears sparkled in her eyes. I appreciate that. I really do. Before he could say more, Tara's laughter erupted somewhere behind them, drawing attention. The atmosphere swayed back to the lively discussions, but he sensed the woman's reservations hanging heavy. Jake wanted to encourage her, but the clock was ticking, and he couldn't ignore the larger battle looming ahead. As they regrouped, Jake looked at everyone, faces lit with anticipation, yet shadows loomed in their eyes, fears bubbling beneath the surface. This was just the beginning, and even as the workshop seemed like a light in the distance, he felt the darkness creeping in on the edges. Suddenly, the front doors swung open with surprising force. A figure stepped in, instantly quieting the room with their presence. It was a man Jake had seen around before, one known for his resistance to change within the community. His eyes scanned the crowd, and for a brief moment, Jake felt as if their hopes were being weighed on a delicate scale. The man's lips curled into a measured smile, but there was something cold beneath it. I hear you're planning some workshops. I hope you're prepared for whatever backlash may come. His tone was far from warm. Jake's heart raced. This was the storm he had feared, and it had just arrived, uninvited. Why don't you tell us what your concerns are? Jake asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The tension tightened like a bowstring, and he knew this was just the beginning of a deeper confrontation. What he didn't foresee was that this couldn't just be a dialogue, it would become a defining moment, a litmus test for their mission. As the crowd shifted, eyes darting to him, Jake realized they stood on a precipice. Would they soar or tumble into chaos? Behind the darkening clouds of skepticism, a flicker of fear twisted in his gut. They had a choice to make, and the echoes of that choice would resonate far beyond this room. He took a deep breath, holding on to the quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, this could be their greatest opportunity despite the storm. But what lay ahead was still uncertain, and the question lingered in the air like a weight. Could they truly unite against the dark? Jake stood tall, his heart racing as the man's words hung in the air like fog. The crowd shifted uneasily, glancing at each other, uncertainty etched into their faces. This was the moment he had dreaded, but also secretly anticipated. They were about to face a real challenge, and it was time to rise. What exactly do you mean by backlash? Tara's voice cut through the murmur. She stepped forward, determination clear in her stance. It was a welcome ripple of courage that encouraged others to find their voices too. The man chuckled, but it lacked humor. This community has its traditions, he said, his gaze piercing. Change tends to disrupt what's already balanced. Not everyone welcomes it. His words echoed in the room, but they carried a weight that made Jake's gut twist. He turned to the volunteers. Their expressions ranged from uncertainty to fierce determination. He had to harness that energy. Change isn't easy, Jake interjected, raising his voice slightly. But we need to ask ourselves, what does balance truly mean? Is it a complacent status quo, or is it a living, breathing thing that grows with us? A murmur of agreement stirred in the crowd. Some nodded, others whispered to one another, and he felt the tide shifting slightly in their favor. He locked eyes with the woman he had spoken to earlier. She was watching him, her anxiety a little less pronounced, as if his words were anchoring her. Every single one of us is here because we believe in something greater, something that can heal and strengthen our community. We can either let fear win or face it together, hand in hand. His chest tightened with urgency. Let us prove that we can create a safe space for everyone, even for those who are scared to share their truths. The man's expression changed. He leaned back slightly, eyebrows rising in disbelief. For a moment, Jake worried he'd pushed too far, but he steeled himself. They needed this confrontation. They needed to be brave. Listen, the man replied, a flicker of irritation sparking in his eyes. You can dream all you want, but dreams don't pave the way for reality. Jake inhaled sharply. Maybe not, but a community that dreams together can achieve incredible things. We have to try. The moment hovered, energies tangled in the air. Jake saw the atmosphere transform, supporters emerging from the shadows to stand in solidarity. Tara was by his side, Sam nodding emphatically. So, are we in this together? Jake asked, locking eyes with each volunteer. Are we ready to make a difference, even in the face of adversity? Slowly, people began to raise their hands, hesitant at first and then more resolutely. A chorus of affirmation grew, rippling through the room like a wave. The woman stepped forward, her hands trembling but strong. I want to try. I don't want to hide anymore. Jake's heart soared. Then let us work together. Let us draft our vision and prepare for anything that comes our way. One step at a time. The man narrowed his eyes, but the room buzzed with life, hope blossoming where fear had once reigned. Very well, he said, his voice loaded with warning. Just remember, bravery has its consequences. Jake's breath quickened, a mix of excitement and trepidation. They would either emerge stronger or bear the weight of their choices. As the meeting concluded, conversations erupted, voices overlapping, fears overcoming hesitations. Jake walked back to the woman, a smile breaking through. You were amazing. Thank you for standing up. Her lips curved, the tension easing from her shoulders. I think it's time I found my voice, she said softly, a spark of newfound confidence illuminating her expression. Exactly, Jake replied. And together, we'll forge ahead, no matter the storm. But as he turned to face the group again, dread pooled in his stomach. Somewhere in the greater darkness, he sensed that this was only the tip of the iceberg. What had begun as a community workshop might ignite much more than conversations. It could stir the very heart of their neighborhood. And in the shadows, someone was watching closely. Would they rise to the challenge? Or would fear pull them back down? The sun peeked over the horizon, bathing the community center in a warm, golden light. It felt like a fresh start, a new dawn. Jake stood outside with Tara and Sam, their faces alight with determination. The buzz of anticipation filled the air. Volunteers began to gather for the first workshop, voices overlapping in cheerful conversation. Jake's heart raced. This was it. After all the doubt and fear, they had arrived at their moment. He turned to Tara and Sam. Are we ready for this? The question hung between them, an unspoken acknowledgement of the challenges that lay ahead. Absolutely, Tara replied, her confidence radiating. Sam grinned, determination sparkling in his eyes. Let us do this. As they stepped inside, Jake was struck by the energy of the room. Familiar faces filled the seats, those who had doubted, those who had cheered him on, and even those who had feared change. And yet, despite the diverse range of emotions, they all came together, united in their desire to create something meaningful. Jake took a deep breath, stepping to the front. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice steady and warm. "This is just the beginning, not just for our project, but for our community." The audience listened intently, the silence almost palpable. "I want this to be a space where everyone feels safe to share their stories and opinions, even the difficult ones. It's okay to feel scared, but let us face that fear together." A ripple of whispers surged through the crowd, and Jake noticed the woman from previous meetings, the one who had struggled with her voice, sitting at the front. Her expression was nervous yet hopeful, as if she was ready to step out of the shadows for good. He continued, "Let us kick things off with an open discussion. What brought you here today?" Jake felt a wave of courage wash over him as he invited others to share. A hand shot up. "I came because I want to see my kids grow up in a stronger town," a mother said, her voice filled with conviction. Another spoke up. "I want to ensure that everyone feels included, no matter their background," said a young man, his voice steady. One by one, more voices chimed in, creating a symphony of aspiration. The air thickened with a shared dream, each expression laced with vulnerability and hope. The fear that had once stifled them seemed to lift, replaced with excitement and connection. Jake glanced at Tara and Sam, their smiles a reflection of his own exhilaration. "See? This is what we're here for. Let us learn from each other." Then, he spotted the man from before standing at the back, arms crossed, watching with a skeptical expression. Jake felt a pang of trepidation. It was clear he still held doubts. "Let us hear from everyone, including those who might oppose our vision," he suggested, bravely extending an olive branch. "What concerns do you have?" The tension shifted, and silence settled briefly before the man raised an eyebrow and stepped forward. "I appreciate the enthusiasm, but how do we know it won't turn into chaos?" "Change can be disruptive," he challenged. Jake squared his shoulders, resolved to meet this head-on. "Change is scary, but it's also necessary. We have to embrace it, not as a threat but as an opportunity to grow. Together, we can navigate through this." The man narrowed his eyes but nodded slowly, his posture relaxing slightly. "I suppose you have a point." Encouraged by the small concession, Jake turned back to the group. "So, what can we do to make this work? Let us tackle the challenges together." People began to share ideas, suggesting strategies for handling disagreements, opening pathways for dialogue, all while laughter erupted at the unexpectedness of their collaboration. Slowly, the initial tension transformed into camaraderie. Jake's heart swelled as he witnessed his community coming alive, their spirits intertwined like branches on a sturdy tree. The workshop piqued curiosity, ignited passion, and built consensus. There was a tangible shift, a sense of unity that was blossoming, even amidst the tensions, and then, with a burst of courage, the woman who had hesitated before stood up. "I want to share how this project means so much to me," she said, her voice quivering with emotion. "I've dealt with loss and fear defining my days. But today feels different. I feel like I can be brave." The room fell silent. A ripple of support surged through the crowd as the woman opened her heart. "Thank you for sharing." Jake beamed, overwhelmed by pride. "This is why we're here, to create a safe space where everyone's voice counts. That's the community spirit." The applause was immediate and heartfelt, echoes of solidarity resonating through the hall. As the workshop continued, Jake absorbed every moment, the laughter, the stories, the connections. They had transformed doubt into a fabric of camaraderie woven with care and understanding. He had not only built a project, together, they had built community, a vibrant tapestry of shared dreams. As the event closed, Jake felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. They had faced the storm and weathered it together. Stepping outside, the air felt fresher, the sun brighter, as if the world had renewed its promise. But even amidst this positivity, worry lingered at the edge of his mind. What lay ahead would still be challenging. The man's doubts, although softened, still loomed in the background, a persistent reminder of the work that remained. Jake knew this journey wouldn't be easy. More storms awaited, but they were prepared to face them with resilience and support. With a full heart and a determined spirit, Jake smiled and turned to his friends. Thank you, all of you. This is just the beginning. Let us keep pushing forward, no matter what comes next. As they walked away, he realized the power of a community united. Together, they could climb mountains, heal wounds, and create something beautiful. And that was a dream worth fighting for. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories that can inspire change. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep this community thriving. Comment your reactions and feelings about this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this journey.